It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, authorities on the island of Tenerife end the search for missing British teenager Jay Slater. So what next? For a heartbroken family determined to find their son. Local officials insist that the investigation into Jay's disappearance will continue and the option to search other parts of the island remains. But that will come as little consolation to a family going through a living nightmare. Also tonight, with the election just days away now, have the major parties underplayed the effect of the cost of living crisis? Sky News has been speaking to some of those most affected to find out if there's a mood amongst the millions who find themselves worst off to punish politicians at the ballot box. Plus, the sliding doors moment for English football, from the players and fans in Germany to those at home or watching down the pub. We'll take a look at the impact of that goal from Jude Bellingham. And I'll be joined tonight in the studio by the man planning to become the first triple amputee to ever sail solo across the Pacific Ocean. Craig Wood brings us his inspirational story. All that to come, and much more on the UK Tonight. Good evening. It is 2 weeks to the day since Jay Slater called his friend Lucy Law to say he was lost in a remote, rural location on the island of Tenerife. He had no water, his phone was running out of battery, and he was miles from where he had been staying with friends to attend a music festival. It was the last time anyone heard from Jay, who remains missing. His family have been enduring what they describe as a living nightmare ever since. Over the weekend, authorities in Tenerife decided to call off the search. The question is why and what happens next. Well, Sky's Becky Johnson is in Tenerife for us tonight. Becky, have we been given any indication as to why this search has been called off?
In a word, no. And the police here in Tenerife have been really tight-lipped in terms of giving out any information throughout this search. But their decision to call off that active search of a vast mountainous area just 2 weeks after Jay's disappearance has attracted criticism from British tourists we've been speaking to on the island. Many of them really surprised that it had been called off after such a short time. In fact, one of the volunteer British hikers that's come over to help with the search said he felt that the final day that police organised of searching that mountainous area on Saturday was simply a PR stunt, he said, because it just wouldn't be possible to cover such a vast area, to look across all those miles of terrain in 2 weeks. So many people shocked at the decision to just stop that search. But I've been speaking to a local mayor in the region who's been defending the police. He says that although that active search phase is over, inquiries into Jay's disappearance are still very much ongoing.
The investigation that the Civil Guard is carrying out in this case has several lines of inquiry open, right? It's not that the search has stopped. Maybe, yes, in the territory or the field of search.
Do you think it's too early to have stopped searching?
I don't think so. I don't think it's too soon, because it's true there is experience in this type of disappearance on the island, but certainly a magnificent job has been done by the Civil Guard. Until last week, many resources were allocated to the search.
Do you think online conspiracies have hampered this search?
No, I believe in this case the Civil Guard is very professional and that they do not deviate from the investigation, and what they have is quite clear and verified.
Well, Becky, Jay's family have called this frustrating. From their point of view, they'll be wondering how an investigation can continue without actually looking for him. What have they had to say tonight?
Well, several members of Jay's family and friends are here on the island, including both of his parents. We know that they're devastated that the search has been called off. Look, I alluded to the conspiracy theories in this case in that interview with the mayor, and those theories that have been spreading online have also been incredibly upsetting to the family. And, you know, I think they have concerns that that has somehow affected the way that this investigation has panned out. They have vowed to stay on the island. They're not going anywhere. They're just desperate for information. In the absence of information from the police here in Tenerife, it can be very difficult for us as media, but also the family, to know exactly what they're doing, especially now we can't see it. It's more investigative work behind the scenes. So they're just desperate for any information, either from the police or from the British consulate, that leads them to have hope that Jay's disappearance is still very much foremost a priority for the authorities here on the island.
Becky, thank you very much. Becky Johnson there on the island of Tenerife for us covering this story. Thank you. We are now less than 3 days away from the general election, and politicians from all parties have been dashing around the country trying to get their last-minute messages across to you. But a lot of the messaging, the various pledges and promises, won't actually mean much to the millions of people struggling right now with the cost of living. As polling day approaches, Sky's People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has been taking a look at the influence they could have on the results of this election.
One thing I don't think we've noticed is food prices coming down at all. In fact, I think quite the opposite. We eat according to price rather than enjoyment.
Sarah and Paul Bomer have had a tough 2 years. They've had to find ways to survive the worst cost of living crisis since the 1950s. And now they have another decision to make. Who's going to make it better for them?
Prices are rising and it hurts.
Inflation above 11%.
That is clearly the highest figure in 40 years.
I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda.
It's October 2022. Rishi Sunak becomes the third Conservative Prime Minister in just 2 months, with a promise to drive down inflation and ease the cost of living crisis. 150 miles north in Chesterfield, and this is where we first meet Sarah and Paul and their 2 sons, Joseph and William.
The passion in our family is Chesterfield Football Club. It's the only thing that we do together. I think it's our only escape.
They live in Derbyshire. Paul's registered disabled and Sarah helps to care for him.
I'm cold now.
Autumn is now drawing in, and their energy bills have just doubled.
The direct debit payment of £240 is due on the 27th of May. Next thing I know, just a quick reminder, we'll collect your monthly direct debit payment of £492.96 on the 27th of June. That's 1 month difference.
What did you think when you read that?
I just burst into tears. I was just like, what are we going to do? And we've had to find that money every single month, and we've had to make massive, massive cutbacks. I batch cook. I actually cooked 4 of them. The rest of it's in the freezer, and that's how we tend to live.
That is purely and simply to save money.
Oh, absolutely.
With the bills going up, do you feel that that's put a lot of strain on you?
You feel like you're having to stand there and keep a smile on your face, and you have to put a mask on for your children. You really do. You have to be honest with them without frightening them, and that's very difficult. Oh, so much to think about now. Having had pneumonia, like nearly killing him a couple of years ago, I'm very conscious of the fact that he needs to be kept healthy, and I don't want him going downhill.
Well, we've got each other, haven't we?
Yes, we do. We have each other, and we have our lovely family.
We will get us out of this endless cycle of crisis. And the first step must be to tackle the cost of living crisis.
Labour is beginning to make promises about how they would handle things if they were in power. And when I visit Sarah and Paul again, the temperatures have plummeted, and British families are now facing the biggest fall in living standards in a generation.
A normal everyday shop, which used to be about maybe £20, £30, is now turned into £70.
Sarah and Paul start to talk to me more about politicians as this crisis deepens.
Do you think they understand the scale of the problem when it comes to household incomes, household finances, and how you cope?
I don't think so. No, because I think they need really to live like we do.
The problem is here and now for so many families, including ours. It's getting through winter. That's the biggie.
Yeah, it sums up the country, doesn't it, really? It's just miserable.
And no kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
An autumn statement for growth.
Is this the last chance to win an election, Chancellor? Is this the last roll of the dice?
You can see that big increase up into double-digit figures there. We're down there. We're kind of flatlining.
Energy prices, inflation, food prices, petrol prices, people struggling. These are people's lives. This is real. And that's why I think we should have a general election. Whether that will happen, I don't know.
Here it comes! Inflation is back to normal, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
The general election is now just around the corner, and the parties are tearing across Britain. The big sell is well underway. And while inflation might have come down, the price of food is still 25% higher than it was when I first met Sarah and Paul.
Nothing's really changed in the last 2 years. With the same situation.
Sarah grew up in a Conservative voting family. Paul is traditional Labour.
What's your assessment of this government's handling of the economy, and who do you have faith in making improvements to the economy that make your life better?
I'll stick with Labour this time, and because I don't think it's been as bad under a Conservative government this bad for a long time. But as a leader, Keir Starmer doesn't quite cut it for me.
So for you, the choice in this election is very far from clear-cut?
I don't find Keir Starmer as engaging as perhaps I should do, but I really believe in what he stands for. We're looking at 14 years of the current government. Things haven't improved for us. In fact, they've got worse for us. So that's something that we have to take into consideration with this election.
Their politics have very much been shaped by what they've gone through as a family. And in a life that has been full of difficult decisions recently, this election is no different. Nick Martin, Sky News, Derbyshire.
Well, I'm joined now by Helen Barnard, Director of Policy Research and Impact at the Trussell Trust, the organisation that provides a network of food banks across the UK. Helen, good of you to join us tonight. You'll have listened to that story there from the couple in Derbyshire, and it's a story that's all too familiar to you.
It absolutely is. I mean, last year, the Food Banks Nile network provided a record 3.1 million emergency food parcels, and that has almost doubled over the last 5 years. So in every part of the UK, in almost every community, there are people who simply cannot afford the essentials of life and are facing that really bleak, what feels like a never-ending struggle just to get by, make it through to the end of the week.
Yeah, you're in record-breaking territory here, and other organisations that do similar work to you are saying the same thing. And over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we're seeing more and more people being pulled in to this cost of living crisis. It used to be about those who were out of work or unable to work. Now it's about young professionals, working families.
Absolutely. I mean, so when you look at just people who are on universal credit, more than half of those people ran out of food and couldn't afford more. So this is a real crisis, to be honest, of hunger, hardship and debt. And we are seeing levels that we've never seen before. But these are long-term trends. This did begin even before the pandemic. We were seeing those numbers go up. And what we've seen is an acceleration in the last couple of years that really does need to be gripped by whoever wins the election this week.
Yeah, Helen, what have you heard over the course of the last 6 weeks? We're entering the final 3 days of this general election campaign. What have you heard over the course of the last 6 weeks that you think will actually help the people you're helping?
I think across lots of different manifestos, you can see the seeds of a plan. Nobody has brought it together into a plan where you can say, yep, let's do this, this will solve it. But we've seen different parties talk about strengthening social security, We've seen people talk about ending no-fault evictions in the private rented sector so people don't live with homelessness hanging over their heads every single month. We've seen various parties talk about better workers' rights so that when you're in work, it's more secure so you get a decent wage, because we are finding that this kind of hunger and really incredible hardship, it is now reaching into people who are in work. Pensioners now are starting to suffer more than we've seen in recent years. So you've seen these seeds kind of scattered over. But I think what we will want to see is whoever comes into power, we need an urgent plan. This cannot wait for growth. This cannot wait for people to kind of open the books. We need a plan before this winter kicks in, as well as a longer term strategy. So in the first budget, whoever's it is, we want to see measures that will start to ease this hardship across the country.
An urgent plan, but also a long-term plan. I was struck by something that was said during the course of this election campaign on social care, and it came from Senator Davey of the Liberal Democrats, talking about cross-party support for social care, amongst other things. And, you know, looking at this issue of cost of living, do you think it's time for it to stop being a political football in terms of this is a national emergency? And I've heard that said by many organisations in terms of the amount of people that are being pulled well below the poverty line. Do you think this needs cross-party action going forward?
I think we definitely need all parties to come together. What's interesting, I think, is if you go out into the public, this isn't a political issue. So more than 7 in 10 of the public agree poverty is a serious issue, and it's the government that needs to step forward to tackle it. So my sense is, in a sense, our political leaders need to catch up with where the public is. I think the other things we're saying is, if you look at the other big challenges all the parties have talked about, economic growth, easing pressure on the NHS, creating more opportunities for young people, none of those are going to be really achievable when you have this weight of hardship, which is just kicking the legs out of everything else people are trying to do. Because, I mean, we've had some research with GP surgeries, community health settings. They are saying they are seeing people get iller, and it is not because of the health system necessarily, it's because they're in poor quality housing and they haven't got enough money to eat properly. So you've got maybe a GP who is trying to help someone with their benefits because nobody else is, and they know what that person needs is income. We've got primary school teachers who are finding children are coming to school tired, maybe they haven't got a proper bed to sleep on, upset because things are difficult at home, parents bursting into tears at the school gates because they're being threatened with homelessness, or because they have mouldy bedding but they can't afford to replace the bedding and put food on the table. So if we think about enabling our schools and our health services to thrive and to perform as they should, and the economy to perform, we have to get a grip on this, or it is simply going to undercut everything else the next government does.
Helen, as you say, something as simple as putting food on the table for your family shouldn't be a political issue, but many people are seeing July 4th as the chance to change things. You know, if you want to change, you have to vote, you have to do something, you know, that's your right. What are you and your team of volunteers that are helping families and people with this, what are you hearing from them? Are they disillusioned about this general election, or are they seeing this as an opportunity for change, to do something about their circumstances?
I think, the sense across our network of food banks is they are really at breaking point. They have been going and going for years now, trying to keep up with this soaring need, and they're on their knees already, and we simply can't keep trying to keep up with this need. Someone was saying, we're a sticking plaster. We're not the solution. We are just a sticking plaster. But the wound is getting so big, we can't even cover it. We can't keep up with the number of people who need support. And that's heartbreaking for people who are working in their communities. So I think what we found is there's a really strong sense of saying we want to reach out beyond the politics, in a sense, beyond the polarisation, and say, whichever party you are, you should make it your business to make sure that this hardship is tackled, whether you're doing that in government or in opposition, because it's long-term sustainable change we need. And to achieve that and to keep hold of it, you have to build a level of consensus across the political spectrum. And there are people, we have worked with people in every political party who really care about this, who want to achieve change. We need to build on that, whatever happens this Thursday.
Helen Barnard, Director of Policy Research and Impact at the Trussell Trust. Thank you so much for your time this evening on the UK Tonight.
Thank you.
Of course, the final run-up to the election is sure to feature in the newspapers tomorrow. We'll have an extended press preview and news review from 10:30 this evening. Joining Anna Botting tonight will be The Sun's chief political correspondent, Jack Elsom, and the New Statesman's associate political editor, Rachel Cunliffe. Still to come on the programme tonight. Police begin visiting more than 160 families to return ashes recovered from the funeral parlour in Hull. And we'll be hearing from British holidaymakers forced to evacuate as wildfires rage across parts of Greece.
Get the full story first. This election on Sky News.
We have a sensational team lined up for you in our virtual studio.
We're going to bring you all the breaking news.
We're not just going to be focusing on Westminster. We're going to look at the whole picture.
I will be showing you lots of the data, the analysis, breaking it down.
Sky News election coverage will go further. It will work harder.
What is our country going to look like after the election?
Of course, we'll bring the facts. We're also going to have some fun.
Seriously, people, you won't want to tune anywhere else. You get the full story first on Sky News.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
It's turning everybody into, you know, a crazy, violent drug addict.
How are you feeling?
I am angry.
It is an anti-woman agenda.
2 women say that you paid for their abortions. Are you a hypocrite, sir? Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
I gotta be realistic. My sister's dead.
More than 4 weeks on, there's no murder weapon and no suspect. Are you going to catch this killer?
We are doing everything we can.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
We're so excited.
Severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
I've watched as whole towns were torn apart by natural disaster.
I'm alive and I'm thankful for that, but there are a lot of people who aren't.
It's not the winds people fear most here, it's the water. We take you to the heart of the stories which shape our world.
Do you truly believe what you're saying?
A lot of cases that I know are reported from Ukrainian missiles themselves.
Ambassador, with respect, I think that's preposterous.
Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. We're heading to Greece now. British holidaymakers there have found themselves caught in dangerous conditions after dozens of wildfires broke out across parts of the mainland and several islands over the weekend. More than 100 firefighters, assisted by planes and helicopters, have been tackling blazes on the islands of Kos and Chios. The Greek Prime Minister has warned a prolonged drought and unusually strong winds have created dangerous conditions that will persist throughout the summer. Well, I'm joined now on the line by Lottie Westerling, who has been forced to flee her hotel on the island of Kos. She's alongside her friend Kemi. Lottie on her first holiday with friends. Lottie, not going according to plan. I'm glad you're safe. You're currently on a boat. Tell me what's happened to you and your friends. How did you get there?
Yeah, so we arrived at around 2 o'clock this afternoon and obviously there was a wildfire going on. We then were at the hotel for, I'd say, around 2 hours. And all of the holiday makers, I suppose, around were hanging around outside the hotel. We then were sort of walked to the beach 2 hours ago, where there's police officers here, and everyone's been told to board the boats, but we don't really know if or where we're going at the moment. So we're just stranded on the boat at the moment. Yeah.
OK, so first boat trip of the holiday coming a little bit earlier than anticipated. The main thing to take away from this is you are safe, but you're on that boat because it's too dangerous to even be on the beach. What can you see from the boat, girls?
So it was originally that we could see orange and the light. I mean, we haven't been able to see any actual flame. A lot of smoke. A lot of smoke, and there's the wind as well, which obviously is making getting windier. The orange lights in the distance are getting bigger, but obviously it's really slow. Not as well. Yeah, it's very bonfire, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. And what's the advice you've been given? Obviously, get on the boat for now, but are you being given updates, any sign when you'll be able to head back to the beach, or could you be there for the night?
I haven't really been given much communication. No one really knows what's happening, so we're just waiting to hear. The man's come to tell us what's coming up.
OK. Any idea what he's saying to you? Could you relay it to us?
No, he's walked away. But there's about 20 boats going all the way down, like full of people, but no one's really told us anything. So at the moment, we're kind of in the dark.
Quite literally bobbing around, 20 boats on the seafront. Were you told anything about the risk of wildfires before you headed out to Kos?
No, I mean, I hadn't personally heard that particular hotspot for wildfires. Obviously, now looking at the news, we've seen that the Greek Prime Minister said beforehand that this summer was expected to be particularly bad. But I mean, in terms of like the holiday companies, as far as I'm aware, we haven't been communicated anything from them.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that a lot of people watching this programme tonight, heading to Greece and the islands, so popular amongst British holidaymakers, will be watching this with a degree of trepidation and interest as to how you girls get on. Well, I was going to ask you what the plan is next, but you don't really know, do you? You might be on this boat for the night. What are other holidaymakers on the boat with you saying?
Everyone's, I think, just in this. We are really luckily there are lots of crisps being served, so I think that's what it is. Yeah. So everyone's just waiting.
Some people brought their suitcases, planning to probably leave, but we had to leave all our stuff in the hotel. We didn't get any time to pick up any of our stuff, so it's not really good for me.
Oh, well, look, girls, you're keeping a good sense of humour in the face of a rather difficult start to your holidays. You've not got your suitcases. Who knows? Whoever's on there with suitcases might lend you some clothes or something if it gets a bit chilly. But listen,
hopefully.
Yeah, listen, keep us updated with how you get on. We really hope that, you get back to the mainland soon and get back to the hotel and crack on with your holiday. But the main thing is you're safe and your friends and family will see you on Sky News tonight to know that as well. Lottie and Kemi, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Oh, your first holiday with friends and you're in the middle of a wildfire situation. Best of luck to Lottie and her mates. We'll keep across that situation in Greece for you right here on Sky News, of course. Now, police in Humberside are visiting more than 160 families. This is to return the ashes of loved ones recovered from a funeral firm in Hull. You may remember this story. Legacy Independent Funeral Directors was raided and investigated by police following concerns over the care and storage of bodies. Our North of England correspondent Charlotte Leeming has this report.
It's heartbreaking. It comes over you, Liz. It's raw.
Richard Shaw's late wife Rita died after a short illness last October. He used Legacy Funeral Directors in Hull for her cremation. After the firm was raided by police in March, he was concerned he might have been given the wrong ashes. Those fears were realised when police recently told him they'd found documents to suggest they found her ashes during their inquiries. They've just been returned to him 8 months after her death.
I'm taking them that they are Rita's ashes, but it's just a case, if I didn't accept that, I don't know how I'd cope with it at all. You know, I think I'm a bit more positive that it could be Rita's ashes, but with her being cremated, they can't check on the DNA side of it.
Legacy Independent Funeral Directors has been under investigation since police recovered 35 bodies and a quantity of ashes at its premises on Hessel Road. 2 people arrested at the time on a number of offences have been released on bail whilst inquiries continue.
Humberside police have told us they're now in the process of visiting 163 families across the city whose loved ones' ashes were recovered from the funeral firm. They've been identified through documentation and extensive inquiries, but there are still ashes that were recovered from that site which will never be formally identified.
The families affected are calling for a permanent memorial for their lost loved ones. Monthly candlelit vigils have been taking place at the city's Pickering Park. It's given those affected an anchor of support in such uncertain times. Karen Dry, who used the Legacy funeral firm when her parents died, has organised the gatherings.
We were all perfect strangers at the beginning, and now we're all very, very close friends. We've sort of created our own little community out of it. We need a permanent memorial. We need somewhere that people can come and sit and think and reflect on their loved ones, on their families, not necessarily about what's gone on, just about their lives, and somewhere that's just like this, quiet and peaceful, so that we know that they're actually finally resting.
Richard had unidentified ashes in his home for many months. He says he may never know who that person was, but he's now scattered their ashes around a rose tree he planted for his late wife, a sign of respect and remembrance. Charlotte Leeming, Sky News, Hull.
Still to come on the UK tonight, how England's sliding doors moment against Slovakia could help bring a summer boost to the hospitality industry. And I'm going to be joined by a man who lost both legs and his left hand serving in Afghanistan. He's going to tell me how he is hoping to become the world's first triple amputee to sail solo across the Pacific. Now, it's not often you get the chance to compare the England men's football team to a 1990s rom-com, bear with me, but the Three Lions had their very own sliding doors moment yesterday. If Jude Bellingham hadn't scored that stunning overhead kick in the dying seconds against Slovakia, Gareth Southgate's team would have been out of the Euros, his legacy tarnished and millions of fans left heartbroken. Instead, England can continue to dare to dream for at least another week. But some fans didn't manage to keep the faith. These two spoke to Sky News as they left the stadium just moments before the late drama.
What did you make of that? What are you making of What needs to happen next?
Well, Southgate's gone, hasn't he? He's gone on his holiday. Players pick up next 2 years, that's all I can do.
And you're leaving early?
Yeah. Only because we don't want to get caught on tram.
I wonder how they're feeling today. Well, let's speak to someone who did stay until the end of the game. Richard Southwood, one of the thousands of England fans there last night watching the heroics of Bellingham and Kane, with his young sons Jake and Liam, who are also with us tonight. Good to see you all. Richard, I don't think I've even processed 24 hours on what I witnessed on my television. What was it like to be there?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it was definitely a sliding doors moment. We drove to Gelsenkirchen for the game, and I think we were dreading the journey home with 30 seconds to go. And then obviously Bellingham pops up with a wonder goal. It's absolutely fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah. I can see Liam beaming from ear to ear. A lot of the fans were getting a little bit frustrated, Liam and Jake. There were some boos and whistles. Did you lose faith, or did you know England could do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that quiet confidence. I love it. Richard, what was that like? Because obviously you got two young England fans there. And like I said, the fans were getting on the team's back a little bit, losing the faith, like those two men we saw leaving the stadium earlier in that clip. What was it like for the boys? How did you keep them, geared up for it?
Oh, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them. Liam's been to a few tournament games before. It was Jake's first one. And to be fair, overall in the stadium, it was a really good atmosphere. There were a few boos, but mostly they were getting behind the team. And I think when you get to that moment and we'd hit the post with Declan Rice's shot just before, you are beginning to lose it. But we kept cheering, kept singing. And yeah, it was all worth it in the end, wasn't it?
I love it. I can see the video of the boys singing there. Liam, what were you singing at that point?
Sweet Caroline.
Sweet Caroline, yeah, we love that, don't we? It was a big rendition of that once England had won the game. I was singing along at home. I bet your voices were better than mine. Can I ask you, Richard, every England fan has got an opinion about Gareth Southgate's tactics, and obviously they were criticised so much before that game. In fact, if Gareth Southgate had listened to the critics, Jude Bellingham probably wouldn't have even started that game. What's your position on England going forward?
Yeah, so Liam's just whispering rubbish in my ear, so he's got a good opinion on it. But no, I think Southgate's done his time. So whatever happens at the end of the tournament, I think he probably needs to move on. But looking at it, the tournament's still wide open. We've still got a really good opportunity. I think Spain are the standout side, but then we watched France earlier and they've struggled through like a lot of the other teams. So I think England have still got a really good chance. Really good opportunity, and I think we just need to get behind everyone. We can still do it. We can get to the final, and then anything can happen.
Exactly, Richard. That's what Jude Bellingham said. He said, come on, get behind the team. I'm going to put it to the boys, actually. Liam and Jake, what do you think is going to happen on Saturday against Switzerland? Liam, do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Right, go, Jake. What do you think? Go on, Liam, you go.
I think we're going to win 1-0.
1-0.
Okay, Jake, you predicted the score right yesterday, didn't you? So what do you think?
2-1 again.
2-1, I love it. And do you think Jude Bellingham and Kane are going to score again?
Yeah.
Yeah. OK, brilliant. Well, on that positive note, we will leave it there. Richard, Liam and Jake, enjoy the match at the weekend. Thank you for giving us that much-needed optimism we need here ahead of that England game against Switzerland. Love it. Thank you so much.
OK, thanks.
Thanks, boys. Well, England's victory means that they stay in the tournament for at least another week. That gives pubs and fans a chance to capitalise on the team's progress, the fan parks. I'm joined now by Gemma Cook, who runs the Cabin Pub in Dudley, where they are very, very proud of their local boy, Jude Bellingham. Gemma, talk me through the atmosphere in the pub yesterday.
Hi, Sarah. Wow. It was a mixed bag of emotions, as I'm sure you can imagine. In the beginning,
Anyone leave
it was very
early?
much... Pardon?
Anyone leave early?
No, actually, they were really loyal. They stayed till the end, if anything, because, you know, the way it turned out, they were here for many hours afterwards. So it was a great, great day. I mean, obviously, given the way the match was looking, it was very much, are we going to be out from the customers? And that kind of somber attitude did start to, you know, creep into the pub. However, that goal on the 95th minute, the pub just exploded. You know, they were singing the Beatles, Hey Jude, dancing. Thankfully not on top of the tables, but they were dancing and just having a great time, really, yeah.
And of course, Jude is a local lad from Dudley.
He is.
So you guys must be buzzing off that, the fact that, you know, he's a massive star now, isn't he, playing for Real Madrid and leading this England team into the quarter-finals. What's the word on the street about the local lad?
But just great comments, really. I mean, given that he is just a few miles down the road from us, obviously there is a lot of interest in him. And the goal itself, I mean, how can you say anything about the boy's talents when he literally pulled it through for us? But obviously there's a massive buzz locally, even more further afield really than Dudley. Unfortunately, my daughter was an inpatient at Birmingham Children's Hospital in these past few weeks, and the hospital radio station for the charity was going around the wards and asking the children would they mind sending him some wishes and some, you know, some praise and some encouragement for the matches. And I think just that in itself, it is kind of like the community pulling together to support, you know, our local lad, and why not? He's doing really good.
He really is. Gemma, England did the business, so they're in it for another week. What does that mean for your business, to have England in the Euros for another week?
Well, the atmosphere in the pub, obviously, we're going to continue through with that positive attitude. You know, there were comments, I'm not going to lie. We got to around the 90th minute yesterday, and a few of the customers were like, oh, it is going to be quieter now, moving forward if England go out. And that, you know, we are supporting our nation, our home nation, and why wouldn't we? But yeah, for the hospitality side of it, I mean, it's massive. Just looking at the figures and the statistics. So yesterday, for instance, we were 135% up on yesterday versus the previous week. Now, that's not a little bit, that's 135%.
Yeah.
I think the first England match, we were something like 370% up versus the same day the previous week. So it is having a massive influence. And, you know, it's great to see the pub full. Even people that aren't really football supporters are still coming in. The atmosphere is great. You know, I'm not the biggest follower of football. I'm not going, just because I don't really understand the offside rule and all of that. But just to be there in the atmosphere in the pub is absolutely amazing. It really is.
Oh, well, Gemma, long may it continue all the way to the final, eh? It's good for England and it's good for business. I bet Jude Bellingham won't have to buy a pint if he comes into the cabin.
Oh, no, he can have his own tab. That's fine.
Gemma, good to speak to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Gemma Cook there, who runs the Cabin Pub in Dudley. Now, my next guest was serving as a rifleman in the army when he lost both his legs and his left hand in a bomb blast in Afghanistan back in 2009. Craig Wood was in an induced coma for 2 weeks, but it took another 8 months for him to learn to walk again and years more for his quality of life to improve. Back home, he began sailing, something he'd done with his father as a child, and now he is planning to become the world's first triple amputee to sail solo and unsupported across the Pacific. And I'm delighted to say that Craig joins us in the studio now. Craig, hello.
Hi.
Well, this is quite the challenge that you are about to embark on. This comes from your love of sailing when you were younger. Why did you want to revisit it under these circumstances?
Sailing is something that I can do despite my disabilities. So when I was injured, we didn't know what I could do. my dad came and gave me a email address with the Paralympic development coach's emails on it. And that sort of spurred the refocus of my rehabilitation. I then began sailing professionally. And when in 2020 was our aim for the Paralympic Games, it was taken out of the Paralympic Games. We found that out in 2015. I was then invited on a boat and I sort of fell in love with the cruising lifestyle of it. I was like, oh, I can do this. This can be something I can get very good at. And so again, it was another element of, I can do this despite my disability.
What was the journey like to get to that point in terms of, you know, we're talking about your life changing back in 2009, beyond any recognition in terms of physically and I would imagine mentally as well. What was it like to navigate that path and find yourself in such a positive position? Because it can't have been easy.
No, it was quite difficult. In intensive care, the first few weeks in intensive care, actually, my mum gave me a hard lesson. Love her to bits for it. She basically said, after all the crying, then what? And I couldn't argue it, and the logic is sound. Yeah, I could either lay in bed crying all day or I could refocus and try and make the best out of this, what is a new life to me.
You can always rely on your mum for the best advice, and often the advice you don't want to hear at the time. And going from that position in intensive care to the rehab, because when you do have a life-changing injury, those are the longest days, the longest weeks, the longest months. At that point, sailing wasn't your goal. You didn't know what the future held. So how did you focus and keep going? What was it you were trying to get to? Did you have something in your mind that you wanted to achieve before sailing came to you?
Hug my mum. One of the first things, it was like, I can't even hug you. How am I going to be able to do anything? So she created a board with letters on it and numbers above the letters, because I couldn't speak because of my tracheostomy. And we would like, how am I going to live any way a good life if I can't even hug you right now? And so it's like, well, then that's your first thing, isn't it? So yeah, and like we aim towards that. The next thing's sitting up in bed. The next thing's getting around in a wheelchair. Those small goals that we could achieve.
What was that first hug like?
Amazing, yeah. All of it, amazing.
Your mum sounds amazing.
She is.
Talk to me about the plan for this trip. Across the Pacific Ocean, you're going straight in. This is the big one. You know, you're not, you know, taking small steps here. You're leaping straight in. What's the plan?
For the past 7 years, I have been taking the steps towards it. So this is, however, the biggest ocean on the planet.
Yeah.
And it will take me a minimum of 60 days, upwards of 80. And there may be times when I'm facing waves as big as double-decker buses. I may be in winds that are able to rip trees out. So I need to plan. Now, this is not a small feat. This is part of the reason why I'm doing this challenge. Anybody's going to find this difficult. So the aim is to prove that I can do it as a triple amputee, despite the challenges.
What's the training like? Because you're heading to South America after this to continue training.
Yeah.
What does it involve?
Lots and lots of courses.
Yeah.
And making sure that I've got all the equipment ready. The boat needs to be set up, which is quite a vital part. If the boat's not ready, how can I be? So we're getting all of the fundraising together right now, just to make sure that I've got all of the things necessary, all of the vital equipment to get me across this ocean.
You've got a crowdfunder set up, and I'm going to let people know it's the crowdfunder website, and it's Craig Wood Sales. It's just up on the screen now. There it is, the page, sailing solo from Mexico to Japan. What does your mum make of it?
I don't
What's
know if
your mum's
the
name? I
words-
feel like we should give
Leslie.
her a shout out.
My mum's
Leslie.
yeah.
Leslie, what a son you have here, and what a mum you have, Craig. What does she make of this challenge?
I think the word's irreverent. She doesn't understand the dangers. And so I've scared her half to death once before. Well, that this might scare her now. But yeah, I don't want to really go to town on what could happen, just to give them a bit of an ease. you know, it's only sailing, I'll be fine. It's not just that. Yeah, it's
just a gentle sail across the Pacific Ocean. Yeah,
it's much more dangerous than that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, look, you know the dangers. You faced your worst fears and you are willing to face this challenge, and we wish you the best of luck. That crowdfunder again, go to the crowdfunder website and it's Craig Wood Sales. We wish you the best of luck and we will follow your progress and your challenge as well. And we hope to speak to you when you've completed it successfully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, Craig. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Leslie as well. Oh, Mum's great. Still to come here on the programme. In the sport, Wimbledon gets underway today, but the big question is, will Andy Murray be fit to make a final appearance in the singles at the All England Club?
There was certainly a feel-good factor and spectacle. I felt, there have been glowing reviews all round today, but I felt in the crowd that it had a very saggy middle. I mean, we all get to that point in middle age anyway, don't we? But it did. It got lost and underneath all the spectacle and the guest stars and the strange cover versions of their own songs and also new and obscure tracks. It all got a bit lost in the middle. They recovered at the end with Fix You, an amazing sing-along, and then they finished on a new single. I don't know who finishes on a new single. No one does that. And Coldplay should be long enough in the tooth to know to finish on a big one like Shiver, for instance. Yeah, it was really moving because the story is that Coldplay were inspired to form a band when they watched Back to the Future and he got on stage and played Johnny B. Good in the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, I think it was called, in Back to the Future. And Coldplay were inspired to form a band from that. So it was a really special moment for them to bring out their hero, and it was really moving on sight as well, because it's an iconic film for so many people, including me, and to see him there playing the guitar and obviously enjoying it and being in awe of the crowd was special. And Michael Levis straight afterwards as well.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolution. It's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. Coming up, we'll hear how military horses caused chaos in the capital after bolting through the streets of London again. But first, David Garrido is here with today's sport. We're talking about Wimbledon, day one, done, or is it still underway?
There's still some late matches.
There's still late matches going on. But the big question that's not yet been answered is Andy Murray going to play in the singles tomorrow? We thought we'd have an answer by now.
We did think we'd have an answer by now. He's going to leave it as late as he possibly can. I think he's kind of earned the right to do that, by the way. Two-time winner at SW19, an absolute legend, and it could even come tomorrow morning. Now, he is due on third on centre court against Thomas Mashak. He's a player against whom actually he suffered his original injury before then getting this sort of back cyst he had to have the surgery on. Then, you know, he's been playing with pain, not playing with pain, but he hasn't recovered full feeling in his right leg, and that's the concern. So who knows what happens overnight, and maybe he does feel better in the morning. And I'm going tomorrow, and I think that no one wants to watch Andy Murray struggling for a couple of sets and then retiring. They want to see him go out, you know, with a proper farewell. And the other option is playing doubles with his brother Jamie, which they've never done before at Wimbledon. So this would be, you know, a really good way to go out. And hopefully they'll win a few matches before that happens. Maybe even, who knows? Let's dream, win the whole thing. So So Andy, I think, doing what he wants to do, which is leave it as late as possible.
OK, let's talk about Emma Raducanu. Great start to her campaign on centre court today.
Yeah, I mean, she was a little lucky in that she was meant to be playing 22nd seeder Katerina Alexandrova, but she withdrew. She played Mexican lucky loser Renata Sarasua, won 7-6, 6-3. So she is through and plays Belgium's Elise Mertens next. Lily Miziaki, Sonic Hartal also through, but Heather Watson, Liam Brody, Charles Brown and Arthur Ferry are all out. But those aren't the only stories making the headlines in sport this evening.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Let's start with the serve and talk us through everything from grip of the racket, stance, the ball toss, the follow through, everything.
Okay, well, I think we'll start with the grip, and it's called a continental grip, like you're trying to shake someone's hand, so like this. And then at this point, I'm really trying to get myself settled, almost like a sniper getting ready to decide where he wants to shoot. And from there, I take the ball and then look where I'm going to serve. If I'm going to go tee or wide, or if I'm going to hit a bit more kick, put a bit more shape, or really try to slice it and hit it short. Step up to the line, one bounce, and then settled again. And then I'm rocking back. I'm going to throw the ball up and really try to drive up with my legs into the serve and try to produce as much power as I can. I think it's really key to be as accurate as you can with the serve, and closer to the line obviously has been huge. Really trying to make the opponent stretch and making the next ball a bit easier to...
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
3 military horses have been recovered after bolting through central London this morning. During a routine exercise, an unridden horse was spooked by a bus near Pimlico and it ran, causing 2 more to unseat their riders. Despite this collision with a black cab, an army spokesperson said only 1 horse received minor injuries and that no further treatment was required. Well, just a few months ago, you'll remember, back in April, 5 horses, also from the same regiment, bolted 6 miles through the city after breaking loose in Belgravia. An update on those horses as and when we get it. That's all from the UK tonight. Coming up next is The World with Yalda Hakim.